The average General Motors truck now costs over $66,000. For that money, you would expect the best truck GM has ever built. What nearly 600,000 buyers got instead was a recall notice because the engines can seize at highway speed. But the engine is not why loyal Chevy families are leaving. Bad engines can be forgiven. What cannot be forgiven is what those customers found out GM was doing behind their backs every 3 seconds while the trucks sat in dealer bays. This is what went wrong at General Motors and why the company that built the American truck market is now the one Americans are leaving fastest. Start with the most basic thing a car company is supposed to get right: the price, because right now the average American buyer simply cannot reach it. Kelley Blue Book reported that the average new car buyer paid about $49,000 in January 2026, just off an all-time high of over $50,000 in December 2025. Now put GM next to that number. The average GMC transaction price hovered between $64,000 and $67,000 through 2025. In August 2025, the average GMC Sierra sold for over $70,000. And Cadillac hit an average transaction price of $84,579 in October 2025, a jump of nearly 23% in a single year, while household incomes barely moved at all. Picture what that does on a real dealer lot. A welder outside Fort Worth has driven Silverados his whole life because his dad drove one and his granddad drove one. He saves for 2 years, walks onto the lot, and the number on the windshield reads like a second mortgage. So he does the math, walks out, and buys a Tundra down the road. That is not a made-up story. Cox Automotive's own senior economist said it plainly this year. The average buyer today is far more affluent than just a few years ago, and the buyers who cannot keep up with these prices are simply gone. Therefore, GM has quietly priced out the very customer who built the brand, and a customer who leaves overpriced does not come back for a rebate weekend. But the price is not even the worst part, because now, look at what is inside those trucks. In April 2025, GM recalled approximately 597,630 vehicles equipped with the 6.2-liter V8L87 engine, covering the 2021 through 2024 Silverado 1500, Sierra 1500, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, and Escalade. The defect traces to crankshafts and connecting rods, including sediment contamination and parts that did not meet factory specifications. Understand what this failure looks like from the driver's seat. Owners report sudden violent engine knock, then complete loss of propulsion, sometimes at full highway speed with no warning at all. Federal investigators documented over 28,000 field reports tied to the problem, with roughly half linked to catastrophic failures, including dozens of fires, crashes, and injuries connected to engines letting go. And here is the part that made owners furious. For most trucks, GM's official remedy was an inspection and a switch to thicker oil. Dealers checked for one diagnostic trouble code, and if it did not appear, they drained the factory oil, poured in a higher viscosity blend, swapped the filter and the oil cap, and sent the truck home. In the end, only about 3% of recalled vehicles actually received new engines. Everyone else got an oil change and a 10-year extended warranty as reassurance. Therefore, hundreds of thousands of people paying $60,000 and $70,000 for a truck were handed an oil change as the answer to an engine that can seize on the interstate. And the story gets worse because the fix itself is now under federal investigation. In January 2026, the safety regulator NHTSA opened Recall Query RQ26001, a direct investigation into whether GM's original remedy was adequate. The trigger was at least 36 complaints from owners whose engines catastrophically failed after receiving the recall inspection and service. Engines that were checked, signed off, and returned to customers were failing again, and regulators are also examining whether the recall even covered all the affected vehicles in the first place. The courts are now involved too. Roughly a dozen class actions were consolidated into a single federal case in Michigan, and in February 2026, the plaintiffs filed a consolidated complaint calling GM's remedy, in their own words, egregiously inadequate, with failures often occurring shortly after dealers completed the repair. GM's response arrived in June 2026, when the company filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that the recall and the extended warranty already provide an effective remedy. Owners with seized engines can decide for themselves how that argument sounds, and the quality problem does not stop at one engine. GM recalled over 7 million pickups and SUVs in recent years over Takata airbag inflators. GMC scored 199 problems per 100 vehicles on the 2025 J.D. Power Initial Quality Study, and Cadillac scored 200, both worse than the industry average, on the exact brands GM charges a premium for. Therefore, the customers paying GM's highest prices are statistically the ones getting burned the most, and that combination of premium price and broken trust is precisely how a loyal buyer becomes a former buyer. If you own one of these trucks or you are shopping for one, subscribe right now, because the second half of this video covers the part GM really does not want to talk about: what your truck was doing behind your back. In January 2026, the Federal Trade Commission finalized a consent order against GM and OnStar, the agency's first ever enforcement action involving connected vehicle data. The allegation was stunning. GM monitored and sold people's precise location and driving behavior, sometimes as often as every 3 seconds. Where you drove, how fast you braked, how hard you accelerated, exactly where you stopped, packaged, and sold to data brokers LexisNexis and Verisk, who resold it to insurance companies. Then in May 2026, California made it the largest penalty in the history of its consumer privacy law. The state alleged GM sold names, home addresses, phone numbers, precise GPS coordinates, and driving metrics without adequate notice or consent, earning roughly $20 million from the practice between 2020 and 2024. Under the settlement, GM must stop selling driving data to consumer reporting agencies for 5 years, delete retained driver records, and ask the brokers to purge everything GM sourced. A separate class action covering OnStar-equipped vehicles going back to 2016 is still moving through federal court in Atlanta. Sit with that $20 million figure for a second, because it is the most damning detail in this whole story. GM surveilled millions of paying customers, risked the trust of its entire brand, and did it for pocket change relative to its size. Therefore, if you have driven a GM vehicle with OnStar in the last decade, there is a real chance your own truck was quietly raising your insurance rates, and GM was the one getting paid for it. While all that unfolded, GM made another decision that left its own dealers stunned. CEO Mary Barra confirmed the company will strip Apple CarPlay and Android Auto from all future vehicles, gas and electric alike, rolling out with each model's refresh through 2028. Now, look at the data GM ignored to make that call. GM's own internal surveys found that 88% of its customers call the absence of CarPlay a deal breaker. A McKinsey study found 85% of owners prefer phone mirroring over built-in systems, and nearly half said they would not buy a vehicle without it. Ford's CEO went on stage and publicly mocked the strategy, pointing out that 70% of Ford customers are Apple users and asking why he would ever tell them to figure it out themselves. Meanwhile, third-party companies now sell plug-in devices whose entire purpose is restoring the features GM removed, which means people are paying extra money to undo what GM did to a car they already bought. So why do it? Follow the money. GM is chasing a projected $25 billion in annual software revenue by 2030, and it can't capture that if your free phone does the job. OnStar plans run from $9.99 to $39.99 a month. GM reported 13 million active subscribers and $750 million in OnStar revenue in the first quarter of 2026 alone, and its CFO has publicly said these services carry 70% gross margins. Therefore, the modern GM ownership experience is a $66,000 truck, an engine under federal investigation, your data sold behind your back, your CarPlay removed on purpose, and a monthly subscription on top of the loan. Call it old-fashioned, but when you buy a truck, you should own the truck. Here is the question underneath everything. If customers are being squeezed this hard, where is the money actually going? The answer is an electric vehicle strategy that collapsed in public. GM booked $7.9 billion in EV-related charges in 2025, which drove net income down 55%, from $6 billion in 2024 to $2.7 billion. The Blazer EV had to be pulled from sale over software problems and then recalled again in August 2025 for parking brake wiring. GM's EV sales fell 43% to just 25,219 units in the fourth quarter of 2025, fewer vehicles than Chevrolet sells of the Traverse alone in the same period. The plan to build 1 million EVs in North America by 2025 was quietly abandoned, and real people paid for that miscalculation. Factory Zero in Detroit was cut to a single shift, eliminating over 1,200 jobs. Battery plants in Ohio and Tennessee were idled for 6 months, sidelining another 1,550 workers. A Michigan plant meant for electric pickups was retooled back to gasoline models. Added up, and well over 2,800 jobs were cut or disrupted in a matter of months, all in service of a strategy that burned nearly $8 billion. Therefore, the prices, the subscriptions, and the data sales all funded a bet that did not pay off, and the workers and customers absorbed the loss while the strategy's authors did not. The damage does not stop at the American border. At its 2017 peak, GM sold more than 4 million vehicles a year in China. By 2024, that number had been roughly cut in half. The flagship joint venture collapsed about 75% from its peak, and equity income from the China ventures swung to a negative $4.46 billion, forcing billions more in write-downs and factory closures. A market that once generated $2 billion a year in profit became a multi-billion-dollar annual loss, largely because BYD and Geely out-innovated GM on its second biggest battlefield. Back home, the loyalty data now tells the ending. Ford leads trucks in owner loyalty. Toyota sits second, and a 2026 analysis found Chevy and GMC truck owners are among the most likely in the entire segment to switch brands at their next purchase. The company that invented American truck loyalty is now shedding it faster than anyone, and through all of it, the paychecks at the top kept growing. Mary Barra's total compensation for 2025 was $29.9 million, her highest ever, pushing her career earnings as CEO past $300 million. Two more top executives collected another $33 million between them. In the same calendar year, a line worker who spent 5 years building electric trucks at Factory Zero was told his position no longer exists. Therefore, this is not a story about one bad product. It is a pattern of decisions on pricing, on quality, on privacy, on strategy that consistently favored the quarterly number over the customer, and customers have finally responded the only way they can. They left. Loyalty built General Motors over 100 years. These last few years are showing exactly how fast it can be spent. So here is my question for you. Are you still driving a GM truck? And after everything in this video, would you buy another one, or have you already made the switch? Drop your answer in the comments. And GM reports second quarter earnings later this summer, so subscribe right now. Because whatever comes out of Detroit, I will be here with the numbers.